19 different winners. Non-playoff drivers sweep the entire first round. My championship pick is already eliminated. Bristol. It's Bristol, baby. How's it going, y'all? My name is Eric. Welcome to Out of the Groove. It's a late night, but it's one of my favorite nights of the year. The Bristol night race did not disappoint. NASCAR knew exactly what they were doing a couple years ago when they made this a cutoff race, the final race of the first round. We'll talk about who got eliminated. Some big names, some heavy hitters are already out of the playoffs. We'll talk about the top finishers, the many equipment/tire failures we saw throughout the evening, but I want to begin with Chris Buescher and RFK, Roush Fenway Keselowski Racing. What a night. The new era of Roush Racing got off to a hot start back in February when Chris Buescher and Brad Keselowski swept the duels at Daytona. Since that high, however, things have almost consistently spiraled downward. Keselowski hit with a 100-point penalty. Chris Buescher so close at a few different tracks but unable to get a win to make his way into the playoffs. Tonight though, their season reached an all-new apex. If their season was a roller coaster, February was the very top of the lift hill. You know, you're looking out over, you see the big drop, the thrills are starting to set in. Then the rest of the season was basically the steepest drop in roller coaster history, where your stomach's just in your throat, you're not comfortable, you're just hanging on for dear life. Tonight though is the peak of that first hill where your butt starts to leave your seat, you get a little air time, the excitement starts to kick in, and you're screaming your head off having a good time. Chris Buescher breaks a 222 race winless streak, winning tonight in the 17 car. He and Brad Keselowski dominated. Keselowski won stage 1. I thought he was going to win the race until he suffered a right front tire failure in the closing laps. Then Chris Buescher's team, with the gutsy call to go with 2 tires during the final cycle of caution flag pit stops, got him the lead. He never looked back. It helped perhaps that competitive cars like Hamlin and Harvick had major issues during that final pit stop, which put them back deeper in traffic, but Buescher still had to outrun several Hendrick Motorsports cars and a hard-charging Christopher Bell, who had the issue, I guess, that brought out the last caution. Tires didn't fall off much tonight, but Buescher still had to run a smart race, had to maneuver his way through some traffic. I was worried he was glued to the bottom for too long. Elliott was making the top line roll and carrying that momentum, was making up some time. Buescher, though, went to the top when he had to and held off the 9 car, kept his tires underneath him, which was important all night, especially if you drove a Ford, and got the win, which means 19 different winners, tying the record, which was 2001. This is the 3rd week in a row a non-playoff driver has made it to victory lane. The playoff drivers just got swept, clean swept out of the first round. I don't know what to say anymore. The next gen promised parity, and week after week, month after month, all year long, it has delivered on that promise. Congrats to Roush Fenway Keselowski and Chris Buescher getting the victory tonight. Brought a tear to my eye to see the Roush 17 back in victory lane at Bristol. And with a Texas driver behind the wheel. I like that. We have to spend some time on the drivers who got eliminated tonight, but before we get to that, here are your top finishers. A bunch of Hendrick cars there in the top 5. Christopher Bell might have had the best overall car tonight, but he had a tire issue himself in the closing laps, which put him back in traffic a bit. He made his way back up to 4th. Shout out to AJ Allmendinger, Cole Custer nabbing a top 10. Denny Hamlin had to back up in his pit stall during the final cycle of stops. He comes home with a top 10. Same goes for Kevin Harvick, but as we'll see in a moment, just too little, too late. Brad Keselowski, I mentioned, had a great chance to win this race, drove up through the field and passed Kyle Larson for the lead straight up. Unfortunately, he had a tire issue. Do I sound like a broken record yet? Get used to it. He still manages to finish a respectable 13th, a banner night for RFK. Kind of cool to see Brad semi-celebrating with Buescher on the front stretch afterwards. There are your top finishers. You'll notice only a few of these names are in yellow. A lot of the names are in just a generic white. Lots of playoff drivers had issues tonight. Unfortunately, 4 were eliminated from contention. Kevin Harvick ended the regular season one of the hottest drivers in the Cup Series, winning 2 races down the stretch. He's out after that fluky fire deal at Darlington. Then he crashed racing inside the top 10 at Kansas last week, and then tonight looked to be in contention for the win. Was going to restart on or near the front row on that final restart, except his pit crew made a mistake, left a wheel loose, had to back up to tighten it. Cost him too much track position, he couldn't recover. He still ran well tonight, collected a lot of stage points, but he needed to win. Really unfortunate that Harvick's out early, because I think he's a legit round of 8, maybe even championship 4 threat with the speed they've shown the past couple of months. Austin Dillon also eliminated this first round. His first round looks pretty different from Harvick's. Tonight he got caught up in a crash, finished outside the top 30, but at Darlington just ran 17th, finished 17th, and then Kansas last week finished 14th. Dillon with just the one win, no other playoff points to his credit, needed to do more than run mid-teens and crash to get through this round, and unfortunately he was unable to do so. So Austin Dillon is out. He's not the only Richard Childress Racing car and driver eliminated. Unfortunately, my championship pick, Tyler Reddick, is out. This was not a good night for the lame duck drivers. Tyler Reddick's eliminated, missed out by just a couple of points. Just like Austin Dillon, he was caught up in that Daniel Suarez crash in stage 3, but he didn't seem to have much speed tonight before then. Only collected 3 points in the first 2 stages. His first round wasn't spotless, but Reddick did finish 3rd at Darlington. That's what I'm talking about. I figured Reddick would at least get to the round of 8 with the speed they've had this year. 3rd at Darlington, and then blew a tire while leading at Kansas. While leading! So don't call me crazy. Some of y'all called me insane for picking him as a championship 4 driver. I don't think so. Yeah, he's out in the first round. My pick looks very bad now. I deserve all your criticism and judgment in the comment section below, but I wasn't crazy. I sound like I'm wearing a straight jacket. I'm not insane. He was 3rd and then wrecked while 1st last week. He has the speed, just not the execution, unfortunately. So Tyler Reddick is out. And lastly, I mentioned this is a bad night for the lame duck drivers. Kyle Busch in his final season with Joe Gibbs Racing and Toyota, he's out as well. Early exit from the playoffs, eliminated at Bristol, his best track of all places. Wow. Busch blew an engine midway through this race, the 2nd blown engine of these playoffs. That's just not going to get you through the first round. He blew an engine at Darlington while leading, not his fault. As far as we know, at least. Hamlin suggested he might have missed a shift, but we don't know that. So presumably not his fault. Then at Kansas, an equipment interference penalty from his pit crew put him back in traffic, and then racing in traffic, Busch spun out all by himself, went a lap down, maybe 2 laps down. That was half his fault, half the team's fault. And then tonight, another blown engine while running. I don't remember where he was running, but he was tracking well enough to point his way in until the engine malfunctioned tonight. So 2 blown engines in 3 weeks. Yeah, you're going to get eliminated. Heck, if that happened to Chase Elliott, the regular season champion, he'd probably be eliminated. Not a great parting gift from Toyota these last few weeks. It's a shame. Some big names taken out in this first round. Reddick was my championship pick. Harvick showed great speed at the end of the summer, looked like an outside threat. Kyle Busch, of course, his name in all the headlines over the summer, finally announced his plans for 2023, had some of that weight taken off his shoulders, and an engine malfunction beyond his control. Just a tough break for some heavy hitters tonight. So those 4 are eliminated. Here are the 12 that are moving on. All 3 Penske cars. Yes, that even includes Austin Cindric, who snuck in by like 2 points tonight despite being like 7 laps down. Even Cindric snuck into the playoffs. All 3 Penske drivers tonight, though, faced chronic right front tire failures. Something about the way the Penske Fords set their cars up for tonight did not mesh with what Goodyear brought and what Bristol was dishing out tonight. We saw Harrison Burton, who's a Penske affiliate, blow like 2 right front tires tonight. Early in the race, Blaney blew a tire, went multiple laps down, never recovered. Cindric had a tire issue, that's why he was multiple laps down. Even Joey Logano was bit by this disease late when he had a right front tire go down. A scary, scary night for Penske. Somehow, all 3 of their Fords are moving on to the second round of the playoffs. Obviously, in case you couldn't tell, the points do reset. So Chase Elliott, regular season champion, most wins on the season, goes back to the top for the next 3, Texas, Talladega, and the Charlotte Roval. I want to shout out a couple others. Daniel Suarez kind of caused the big one tonight when he got loose shortly after a restart, spun out in front of a bunch of cars, damaged some playoff contenders. After that incident, though, Suarez, to his pit crew, said, everything's fine, it's going to be okay. Trying to lower the temperature, trying to get everyone's focus, get their mojo back. He rallied, recovered to point his way in by like 6-7 points over Kyle Busch and Tyler Reddick, I believe. So he sneaks in. Happy for Daniel Suarez. Both Trackhouse cars make it. Nobody was given any payback out to Ross Chastain. I didn't think they would. Like I said, if any payback comes towards Ross Chastain in these playoffs, my guess is it will be at the Roval in this next round, especially now that Kyle Busch doesn't have anything else to race for. I didn't expect Bristol to be a place for payback unless Chastain was battling for the win late against, someone he's wronged in the past. Also want to give Chase Briscoe some credit. I did not expect him to make it through this first round. He didn't run particularly well the first 2 races of this round, but he was close enough to stay within striking distance. He came into tonight, I think, 9 points out. A lot of other guys had trouble. Briscoe qualified well, qualified second, did what he had to do, did enough to make his way into the second round. So a round of applause for Chase Briscoe. And a round of applause for Christopher Bell. I don't want to overlook Bell. Yes, I know he had a flat tire late, cost him a shot at winning tonight's race, but Christopher Bell, the last couple weeks in particular, he collected 19 stage points tonight, meaning he finished first and second for the second week in a row. He has collected nearly max points 2 straight weeks. Not enough people are talking about Christopher Bell as perhaps a legitimate title favorite. He's only got that 1 win of the season, but he's close. He is knocking on that door week in, week out, regardless of the type of track. Watch out for Christopher Bell. If he continues this momentum through this next round, which is full of some wacky tracks of weird variety, watch out. If he's in the round of 8, Christopher Bell is a serious championship threat, given what we've seen so far. Anyway, there are the 12 drivers still eligible for the championship, the Drivers' Championship. I will remind you guys that the 45 car advanced to the second round of the Owners' Points. So I guess basically swap out the 45 with the 12, because I guess Blaney's 12 car is technically not in the Owners' standing. So if you're paying attention to the Owners' standings at home, 45 driven by Bubba Wallace still has something going for it. What a night though. 500 laps around Bristol in front of 100,000 fans, a fantastic looking Saturday night crowd. The next gen car was put to the test. We've got to talk about that a little bit. The right front tires going down, we saw, like a dozen tire failures tonight. That seemed to be a Ford issue, primarily. Hamlin, Bell, Jones, Eric Jones, I believe. Those were the only non-Fords with tire issues. But like I said, every Penske car, the Wood Brothers car, had a flat tire. Keselowski had a flat tire while leading. JJ Yaley, I believe, as well. It seemed to be primarily a Ford issue, likely a setup issue. Like even Keselowski. We know those RFK cars, they were fast tonight, but faster than we're used to seeing. I think it's safe to say they were pushing the envelope a little bit. Even TV, Steve Letarte on the USA Network broadcast was making that observation, was inferring that perhaps they were being more aggressive on the air pressures than a lot of their competitors were. It's easy to fly a little too close to the sun, and I think that's what happened to Keselowski, especially. Some of the Penske guys, they may have just missed the setup. Something they had did not gel, like I said, with what the track was giving them tonight. There were also several power steering issues. Sounded like a lot of drivers in the field were worried about brake shake, were worried about their steering, but notably it plagued the Toyotas worse than anyone else. Within like a few laps, Bubba Wallace, Ty Gibbs, and Martin Truex Jr. pulled their cars behind the wall. Truex gave his engine, flipped it off at one point. They all seem to have similar power steering failures, roughly at the exact same time. That's somewhat concerning. Go back a year, 2 years probably. Go back to some of the earliest next-gen tests. There were issues with the steering rack. NASCAR and the team seemed to work through most of those and get those fixed during those early tests, but perhaps some new stuff arose tonight. Bristol is a grueling track. The equipment was put to the test tonight, and I think it's safe to say that going into next year, there are some areas of the next-gen car that could do with a little reinforcement. We'll see what comes out of this. You had Martin Truex Jr. tonight echoing Harvick's comments from a couple weeks ago. Crappy parts. You don't want to hear that week after week, and it's a shame to see mechanical failures plaguing playoff drivers at this point in the season. Granted, most of the playoff drivers who had issues tonight, it was tire issues, which, again, you could maybe attribute to setups being a little too aggressive. So, I don't know. It's a little bit of this, a little bit of that. Some on the car, some on the teams, without a doubt. And some on Goodyear, I guess, because when the tires weren't blowing out, they really weren't wearing tonight. So let's talk about the racing a little bit. Let's put this thing on the groovy gauge. I love Bristol. It's my favorite racetrack. Concrete Bristol, I should specify. The dirt race is fine, but boy, I love what we saw out there tonight. Personally, I'm a fan of multi-groove Bristol. They applied, I think, like old school PJ1 on the bottom lane at the beginning of the weekend to try and help the low line come in. And we saw from trucks to ARCA, Xfinity to tonight, the grippy stuff got worn out over time and the inside lane was becoming less and less effective. So by really middle end of stage 1 tonight, the outer groove was the preferred line 90% of the time. The inside was good enough. You could make some moves, you could make some passes, especially with the help of lap traffic, but it wasn't easy. And I don't need passing to be easy. It's supposed to be difficult to get a position on a driver and maintain it. But with how fast Bristol is, how aero dependent and aero sensitive these cars are, it was clear it was a little too tough to pass. I only think the leader got passed under green like twice, which is why when Keselowski went up and just drove past Larson late, that's what made that so impressive. Lack of tire fall off, largely to blame. Harvick said afterwards cars are just going too fast in the center of the corner, making it really, really hard to pass. So it wasn't as bad as Martinsville back in the spring. Martinsville was a disaster with this car, hoping and praying October's better. Can't imagine it'll be much worse. Tonight at Bristol was not a disaster by any means. The racing was still pretty darn good. It was very reminiscent of modern Bristol, and I liked it. Overall, I liked it quite a bit. It was difficult for this race to really get into a rhythm because every time you started to settle in on your couch, the leader was blowing a right front. So I don't really know how to score this one. It's going to get a positive score, maybe because I'm biased and I love Bristol, and I'm happy to see a Roush 17 in victory lane again. But I'm giving this race, I'm going to give it a 75%. Hear me out, hear me out. I know many of y'all are probably going to go higher on this one. Chaos is great. I loved all the shuffling that happened when, leader blows a tire, Busch blows an engine, Truex has power steering issues. Like, that's fun because it shakes up the leaderboard. You don't see it coming. It blindsides you. But that was really it. We didn't see a lot of bump and runs, not many tempers. Chris Buescher on 2 tires drove away from Chase Elliott on 4 in the final, 40-50 laps. Outside of the Suarez wreck, most of the action came from those kind of fluky mechanical failures, which you often couldn't really see coming. So 75% still a really, really good race, but the flukiness, the randomness almost of some of these incidents, to me takes a little bit of it away. If more of those incidents happen because of hard racing, guys getting into each other, roughing each other up, making each other angry, then this would be in the 80s or 90s for sure. But because a lot of it was mechanical failures, and you really don't see mechanical failures until, they take the tire off and you see the fluid all over it or whatever, I don't know, I'm gonna give it a 75%. Like the Indianapolis race in 2008 had tons of tire failures, lots of shocking, surprising moments, but nobody looks back on that race with any sort of fondness. Tonight's race definitely better than that. I'm not gonna compare tonight to the Brickyard disaster of 2008. I'm giving it a 75%. Share your thoughts down in the comment section below. Are you surprised to see Busch, Harvick, Reddick, Dillon eliminated in the first round? I can't believe that my championship pick is out in the first round. Look, I'm usually hit or miss on my playoff predictions every year. I've never whiffed this badly. It's just, I'm just gonna chalk it up to 2022 being a crazy year that's unpredictable. Let me have it. Let me have it down in the comments below. I deserve it. I whiffed on this one pretty bad. I went out on a limb and the limb snapped and I fell to my death. That's kind of a dark way to end this thing. Anyway, thanks for watching. If you're new to the channel, hit that subscribe button. We recap races every Sunday, Saturday night, whatever day of the week it is. And during the week, we talk about the latest NASCAR news. So hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any upcoming content. And as always, a big thank you to my Patreon supporters. I truly appreciate your very generous support. We'll be back later this week. Enjoy your Sundays tomorrow, folks. We'll see you again likely on Monday or Tuesday. Have a great rest of your weekend. Take it easy, y'all.